I'm Erica Busch, the Director of Practice Management at Weil, and I've worked with a lot of current and former Weil attorneys over the 13 years I've been at Weil. And my team oversees the Beyond Weil Career Explorations Initiative, and we post in-house positions and government positions that we source from alumni, clients, and legal recruiters onto our job board that can be found on the Weil portal, the Weil Alumni app, and the monthly alumni newsletter. Today, I am speaking with Susan Kurz Snyder from Greene-Levin-Snyder Legal Search Group, whose firm frequently posts in-house positions on our jobs board. And Susan has been a legal recruiter since 1989 and runs the in-house division at Greene-Levin-Snyder. Today, she is going to provide some tips and suggestions on conducting a search for an in-house position. Thank you so much for joining me today, Susan.
My pleasure.
So I was first hoping that you could offer some suggestions for our audience on how they should launch a search for an in-house position.
Well, first of all, I think before you even start to launch, you have to be sure that you want to launch a search for an in-house position. A lot of people are not exactly sure what they're getting into, and I often think there's a sentiment that the grass is greener, but you really should do your research and be sure that that is for you. It's qualitatively a very different environment. So at a law firm, you have a diversity of clientele. You get to have a range of industries you may service. When you go in-house, that's your industry. That's your focus. You have pretty much all your eggs in one basket, which can be very freeing and exciting for some people, but for others, they don't want to be all in that way. So you have to do a bit of a soul search and also figure out what's motivating you. Are you running away from something you can't stand? Not the best strategy. Are you running toward or walking toward a much more preferable situation? That's positive. That's a good way to go. So first, get your head on straight for it and be sure that it's for you. The other thing is, in-house requires some different thinking in the sense that at a law firm, it is very much, you're pretty much paid to eliminate risk as best as possible in your advice and counsel. In-house, you're dancing with risk. You are managing risk. It's inherent in what you're doing, and you're using business judgment or you're adding value in the business judgment process to figure out, are we going to do this, even though there's some risk involved here? Not everybody's comfortable with that posture. I would say that many times an in-house environment will be a smaller legal department than what someone's used to at a law firm, as far as the size of the department, the number of people. The politics can run a little steeper, so you need to be aware of that. But if you're good to go and you do the soul search, then I think you have to really get yourself well prepared and well positioned. Firstly, there is a tremendous amount of research you should undertake, both speaking with people you know who have gone in-house, try to get the inside story of what that means, how it differs from being at a law firm. Also, think about what industries you might like or what you don't like. I always tell people it's very much a process of elimination. And as you move into the process, you will figure out, oh, that doesn't really work for me. And eventually you'll come upon the zone in which you want to pursue. Also, when you do identify what it is that you might want to go after, what industries, then I think it's important to cast a wide net, certainly with a number of recruiters, even though that's contrary to my best interest. But I will say not every recruiter works with every place. In fact, usually not in many instances. And I know we have many exclusive relationships with our in-house clients. So you do need to spread yourself around a little bit, but very carefully. You want to manage yourself and your process preciously. Once you move into getting a feel for where you want to be, you want to check job boards, you want to look at LinkedIn. There is a very good resource called Go In-House that lists many in-house opportunities. Also, you should, if companies in particular are of interest to you, you should follow those companies.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the basics.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And what about resumes? Do you have any tips for attorneys who are looking to make a transition from, whether they're currently in-house or they're going from a law firm to an in-house position? Any resume tips that you could provide?
Absolutely. First of all, I know this sounds so basic, but no typos. Just no typos. It's not okay. It's never going to work. Lawyers are supposed to be very detail-oriented, and that's just an absolute no-no from the get-go. So make sure your resume sings well. Also, your LinkedIn profile should be up to date. It should be crisp. Also, your social media should be clean. People stalk, and I don't mean that in a negative sense, but employers will really look in various places to check you out. So you don't want any surprises in that regard. The other thing that's really important is when you are responding, for instance, to an ad about a job or a listing, you want to mirror some of the language that you might see in the specs for the position on your resume and or in a cover note, because firstly, people want to see that. Secondly, it may not even be people who are seeing your resume in the first instance. And if you don't have some key buzzwords in there that match or mirror the job description, you'll just never get yourself seen. So that's important.
So to that end, do you suggest people have more than one resume if they're applying for different roles?
Yes, and I know how busy law firm lawyers are, and I know they often recoil at the suggestion, but I actually think that having a different resume almost for everything you're applying to is very smart, because you really want to tailor it and stress it. You're not making things up. There's nothing deceitful about this, but you're emphasizing certain things over others based on what the job description calls for. So I would say almost everything you chase after would be a variation on theme in terms of your resume.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so litigation attorneys sometimes have a more difficult time finding in-house roles. Do you have any suggestions for a litigator who is looking for an in-house position, or see any trends there?
Yeah, I will say that 9 out of 10 jobs in-house tend to be more on the corporate side. Litigators have options. Not every litigator wants the options available. So what I suggest is to be very open to regulatory / compliance areas. Litigation skills really are well tailored and suit the compliance and regulatory world. And there's definitely a surge in regulation. I think there has been a tremendous, well, not yet tremendous, but soon to be tremendous shift in the regulatory environment, meaning greater regulation just with the politics of the times. And litigators really can slot in very well in that regard. A lot of what you do as a litigator is determine risk, determine pitfalls, figure out where something could go wrong. And so the regulatory compliance world calls for that skill. And I do know that some people have just a negative reaction to the compliance side, but I think it's misguided, because often the compliance side is juicier and much more or much closer to the business itself, and often even more engaging than the legal department. So I would certainly say be open, and also consider things maybe non-traditional as well. I know that we have seen a lot of demand for people in, for instance, litigation finance, and litigators can do very well in that, but that is a pivot.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for providing all of these useful tips for our audience today and taking the time to speak with me. And I encourage our audience to check out the jobs board, as I mentioned earlier, on the app, on the portal, and on the alumni newsletter, and look for job postings, which include some from Susan's firm. Thank you.
Thank you.